What's up, it's your boy Hobo Jobo. Today, we're going to be looking at some more matches with Vesper in yesterday's Onslaught map, because I was having a lot of fun with this deck. And this is basically a part 2 of yesterday's video, but at the end we're going to be showing Magnus versus Magnus in custom matches as well, so stay tuned for that. Now the first match we're going to be looking at today is how I adjusted my strategy from yesterday when going up against Beresad players. I had mentioned yesterday that this deck can come down to what disruption skills you're picking and when you're choosing to pick them. This is really important when you're using heroes like Vesper or anything that's not an epic or a legendary, because you need to make sure that you're getting a lot of value from your overall tower strategy. That way you can make up for the value that you're missing from your heroes. It's just going to be that way. The heroes that aren't epic and legendary aren't going to be as good, but I don't think it's that far off, and I think that if you're resilient and have the right mindset, you can easily win a lot of matches with these heroes. In the second match, we'll look at a Vesper versus Vesper matchup, and then we'll look at Vesper versus Magnus, where I completely choked the match and sold by not picking the right tower skills. If you guys are struggling with Vesper, make sure you're paying attention to what towers I'm putting up and when I'm putting them up. It's very important to buy them in the exact same order that I do. You don't have to follow it exactly, and I think the archery scouts have a lot of leeway with where you want to place them, specifically so that they don't get blown up by those ice methods. However, I do think this layout is really good when it comes to spending your gold efficiently, and that Mage tower is the backbone of dealing damage on that top wave so that I can keep Vesper at the bottom. It's pretty difficult to keep up with my opponent Manto here, because they sent me the golems as well as the ghost booster, and so I had to pick the golems here to buy me enough time, although it is risky because he can end up dissipating them to my side later on, so I need to be able to survive in these early rounds and make sure that I can just scrap out barely enough until the boss round. And the only way I'm able to do that is, like you just saw there, using my polymorph with lightning or rain of fire to take out those high HP troops at the end of the rounds. Otherwise you're cooked. You kind of need polymorph here. It's just too good. I think you could get away with vines if you don't have polymorph, but let's be real, if you have necromancer then you probably have polymorph as well. So here we're going to go with the bonus damage, because I want to make sure that I'm getting as much damage out as possible by that boss wave. This is very important, and I think it's the most important booster with this strategy. Not only is that 10% huge for the boss round, but it's also huge for just these early rounds. How many times have you guys won an Onslaught match by less than 5 seconds? That's the difference between that 5% to 10% damage. It may not seem like a lot, but it really is, and as long as you have your towers spread out, it's going to make a massive impact. However, Manto does push Dissipate here, which is going to be really tough for me because I don't have enough value to be able to counter it. I do try to use Polymorph and Lightning here to save my ass, thinking that maybe I could barely scrap out with a win there, but it doesn't happen, and I do end up having to take a loss on that round. However, I'm not too worried. Also, I finally found some good lo-fi copyright-free music that I put in here, so let me know what you guys think. I'll probably switch it up on a day-to-day basis, or just leave it out depending on the video. Not 100% sure yet, but I figured I'd try it out for once. It took me a while to find some music that I like, and while I wanted to go with some Japanese jazz rock fusion, there's just not a lot of copyright-free stuff out there for that kind of genre, and I wanted the best of the best, like Masayoshi Takanaka and Cassiopeia, which just wasn't possible. Lo-fi is valid though, and I feel like it fits the vibe of these videos. Now this is going to be another difficult round for me. Dealing with Dissipate in rounds 3 and 4 is almost impossible, because no matter what you do, if you don't have Dissipate, you're not going to be able to have enough value to really counter it, unless you have a lot of summons going. But here, my deck is more focused on damage than summoning, and so I have to sacrifice lives in these rounds 3 and 4 if I'm going up against an Archmage player. It sucks, but it's just the sacrifice I have to make. But at the very least, I know that I'm getting more value out of these troops because I'm getting the gold from them, and that's going to give me a massive advantage moving into round 5 and 6. But even these last 2 rounds were so close, and I barely don't win them by inches, which is so annoying because I feel like if Vesper just had a little bit more value, it would be a lot more fair, and I'd be able to win these matches easy peasy. That's what I was talking about yesterday when I just messed up my micro. Having Vesper down for 3 or 4 seconds is the reason I was losing these rounds. And then if I miss by 1 or 2 tower skills, or I mismanage my economy, I'm cooked. There's really not a lot of room for error with this deck. And this is on a deck that I feel like actually favors Vesper. I think this deck is better than the Archmage Beresad deck that my opponent is using. It just comes down to if I'm able to micro Vesper correctly and use my skills in the most effective ways possible. And that's not easy compared to when you can just park Beresad there and he gets a ton of value. But that's also where I'm finding a lot of enjoyment out of this game. It's not just fun to use an Ice Sculptor or Beresad with Archmage and then win right off the bat against players who don't really know what they're doing. I'd rather use a deck with a high skill ceiling and be able to outplay these quote-unquote meta decks. It's a lot more fun. and when I am able to fight and compete against players like Manto here who are a bit more experienced than the average player, it's a lot more rewarding to be able to actually win against them. Now listen to this because it's very important. In round 4, I'm just focusing on getting my defenses up to be able to defend round 5. Then in round 5, I'm putting all of my economy into disruption skills such as sniper shots and skeleton death riders to be able to disrupt my opponent. It's a very sudden switch for my opponent, and a lot of them get caught off guard, buying me time to get in round 6. That is the best advice I can give you for this deck. So you saw I flipped the script there, shooting down his Beresad and sending that Death Rider skeleton to be able to get me that round win. Being willing to go down in matches because you have a better plan for the future is really risky, and it's going to separate the good players from the bad players. This is how you test your limits and be able to make plays that are clutch. That way when the meta changes, you're going to be able to adapt to different playstyles and different cards. If you're stuck with one deck, good luck, because that's just not how these games work. Clash Royale is the exact same way. And I'm a one-trick in Clash Royale. I only use my Golem deck, but I'm still switching out my support cards here and there to adjust to the meta. And so now that we're in the boss round, I'm selling that Necromancer and buying the Mage Tower to get more damage on that JT boss, because the Death Riders aren't the kind of disruption you need in this boss wave. You need sniper shots, or things like enchantment that can slow down Blazing Gems. You'll see that in my Magnus match later, I wasn't able to get good disruption going, and I completely choke, not only letting troops leak through, but doing nothing to slow down my opponent. Since I need to make sure I have disruption going, I buy a third sniper shots and get his Beresad off of the board, buying me enough time for Vesper to do his thing. This is exactly what I was saying yesterday when I was going against the Beresad player and I didn't buy sniper shots, and I lost clearly because of that reason. Small adjustments like this get me more wins, and it's very satisfying to be able to see how I'm adjusting over time. Now let's take a look at a Vesper versus Vesper match, and this focuses a little bit more on clearing versus boss matchups. He is going to be using Archmage, however his setup with Vesper is a lot different than mine is, so I figured I'd show it off, and I thought it was pretty interesting. However, I do think that keeping Vesper on the bottom lane is more effective than keeping him at the top, which is what he was doing here. Maybe if I had a different tower setup, this would be more effective. I haven't tried it out yet, but it's definitely something that I want to do again in the future when this map pops up again. Winning round 1 in Onslaught is really easy if you have the correct spell lineup. You're going to see here, I use my Rain of Fire, and then I'm going to use my Lightning to clear the troops that come out of those portals at the very last second. That way, I'm forcing my opponent to clear at the maximum speed that he can. That's very important. Maximum speed. As soon as those last troops come out of the portal, as long as you're not dealing with skeletons or ghosts, you can clear the wave right away and force that maximum speed. Get used to doing that, and you'll find yourself in a lot more positive situations compared to negative situations. Something that I was struggling with was finding where to put those archery scouts at the bottom right. However, I did see Stormy Muffin, another fellow content creator, put the archery scouts in that top spot, and then that way they can reach over into the other lane, and I think that's really valuable. They can also shoot the Mephits that go up that path, and overall it's probably better value. I like putting the archery scouts at the bottom because they get more value on that bottom wave, and my top wave isn't really a problem. However, sometimes I do like to put 2 archery scouts, getting 4 of them on the board depending on what boosters are being sent. And that's 4 on the right and 2 on the left for a total of 6 archery scouts. If I'm going up against something like Blazing Gem or sniper shots, I do try to get more reinforcements down so that Vesper isn't taking as much heavy damage. We're going to hit Banjo with the Well Played here, because I really like how he's using Vesper with that Dwarven Artillery to get a lot of damage. The Vesper stun buff is huge, and it helps keep enemies clumped together. Since I'm feeling confident in my defense here, I'm going to go with the damage buff over the Ghost, because I don't need to stall that time. However, if he hits me with the Dissipate, it could get kind of rough, and so I am willing to take that risk here. Another reason I'm willing to risk it is because right at that moment, he didn't have 4 tower spots filled, and I figured that he wasn't going to be able to get enough value compared to my setup. Naturally, as more troops come out, my Necromancers are going to get more skeletons down, and he's not going to be able to have anything for that final line of defense if they get past that Vesper and the Dwarven Artillery, which could be really tough. So like you saw there again, using Polymorph and Lightning to kill the bottom wave, and then buying the Spell Barrage in the top wave to do a lot more damage, that cycle is what gets me a lot of these round wins, or round draws, in round 3 and 4. That combo is lethal, and sometimes it's difficult to deal with, like in the last match when you have a lot of things dissipated to your side. It just depends on the matchup, so if you're not able to do that, just survive. Here I'm going for the damage booster again, because I'm going for the win in this round, based on clearing speed. At this point, this match is really just coming down to who has a more efficient strategy, and for me, I feel like I have enough combination of pressure and defense to be able to deal with anything that comes my way. Banjo, on the other hand, doesn't have a lot of options to be able to choose some win conditions, and they're going to have to go for that Archmage Dissipate, which they do end up going for here, but it's just a little bit too late, and even if they were able to survive this round, I would have gotten a lot of extra eco value, and I would have completely swarmed them in that round 5 with all my disruption skills. But here I don't have to do that. My defense is just so well balanced that even with those dissipated troops, I fireball them, Vesper's going crazy, and I have enough to do what I need to do by buying that Mage Tower to be able to get everything cleared at the end of this round, and I got an easy win. I did like seeing Banjo's strategy here, however I would have changed one thing. Instead of going for Dissipate, go for Tar Missile value because I have so many archery scouts down that it would have done a lot of disruption, making it so that maybe at that top wave, troops could have leaked through. My defense at that top wave is just enough to be able to deal with things, and if there's any disruption, all of a sudden I'm starting to struggle a lot. Now let's take a look at the second half of this match against Passenger X, who's using Magnus, Blazing Gem, and Archmage to see exactly what went wrong and why I fumbled the bag. I was keeping up in the first few rounds, and I'm only down 2-3 here, making sure that I'm able to get in the boss round as long as I don't leak a troop. However, I knew that this person's deck was built for the boss round, and so I wasn't feeling great, and I needed to get disruption going. For some reason, I just didn't do that, and I think that's because I had to put value into making sure that I had damage to kill the JT boss myself. When I wasn't able to split up that value, it made it really difficult. Per usual, we're going to start with our spell cycle, going Polymorph, then Lightning, then Rain of Fire once all those troops bunch up, and I was just waiting for everything to get in range of each other. Unfortunately, we do miss that Stone Golem though, and that's going to be huge. The little micros like that of missing things in your Polymorph or not getting the value where you need to by being patient can really bite you in the ass. Vesper gets shot down by the Eye of Sauron, and now I really only have one option, making sure that enemies don't cross the line. What's nice about Onslaught versus Stadium is that if you lose a round in Stadium due to time, you still have to deal with the troops, but in Onslaught, everything dies at the end of the round, and so as long as I keep them away from that exit, they will all die, regardless of if I was able to actually defend that full wave. That didn't really happen in this case, and I would have been able to defend, but I wanted to mention it because whenever Vesper, my hero, goes down, that can end up happening a lot, especially if I'm playing against a Swarm deck with Frost Giants and Necromancers. It can be a lot to handle, and so having Icy Zone or Stun is also very clutch in those situations. And this is really where it all goes south. I have 3 Mage Towers up because I'm fiending to get enough damage off to be able to defend with that Archmage that's going to dissipate things. However, I really should have gone for Sniper Shots. If I had gone for Sniper Shots, I would have been able to take out the Magnus possibly, buying me a lot more time to do damage on the boss. This map has a really good spot for Magnus, and you see he's just going to park him right next to that Blazing Gem, and he's going to go crazy on the JT boss, and I don't have anything to disrupt the Blazing Gem, so it's just free damage for him. So my first mistake was not buying disruption skills. My second mistake was not waiting until all those troops were bunched up with the Stone Golem to be able to hit my Polymorph and my damage spells at the same time. That way, I don't have to deal with as much troops coming around when the JT approaches. That was my biggest mistake. And then my third mistake was just not defending the top well enough. Unfortunately, they end up going through those archery scouts, and I have to move my Vesper there, but it's not on time. I hit it with the Polymorph, and they go right over that line, just completely choking. That's why even just making one blunder can set you back and set off a chain effect of multiple blunders. It's really just depending on if you can clutch up and save yourself, or if you dug yourself too deep of a hole. So now, let's look at some Magnus versus Magnus action. Here we're trying out a few decks. The first one being that was shown to me in our Discord being Arcane and Dwarp, and we were thinking that maybe this was the missing piece to be able to get that strategy going because Magnus puts out so much raw damage, as well as his mobility being really good, to where you don't always have to rely on the Arcane putting out that damage. And Grasmere is doing something a little bit more interesting here, using double artillery with the Glacial Druid and the Dwarven artillery. The thinking behind this was Magnus does so much raw damage that you can basically use him as a mobile Mage Tower, allowing you to get more value out of artilleries, and it worked out pretty decently on this map when you have to deal with Broodmothers. He's also going for multiple archery scouts around the map because it's really effective on the boss here. However, I am going for level 4 Shamans, which is going to put a lot of pressure on those archery scouts as well as his Magnus. It's hard to get good choke points going on this map, which is also why that Dwarven Artillery missile launcher is really good, being able to get damage no matter where the troops are on the map. Basically, this is a defensive deck on my end versus an offensive deck on Grasmere's end. However, Grasmere also has really good defense just because of the archery scouts and Magnus. He was going to go easy on me, but I told him don't go easy, go all out because we want to see what this is really like in a real match. And oh boy, he does not hold back with those sniper shots. Really nicely played, and you'll see the adjustments we made at the very end were really the difference maker in this match. Up until the boss round, it was basically even, and we were able to keep up with everything that was sent towards us, which is really nice in custom matches because everything feels more fair compared to Stadium. I've been down that rabbit hole a million times at this point. We don't need to talk about it again. For the 100th time, Stadium balance is affected by progression issues, not the actual balance of the game. Please make sure you're talking about custom matches or Onslaught when you're talking about balance, not your experience in Stadium, unless you have level 11 deck or above. Even when you have a level 11 deck, the scaling in Stadium is still different compared to custom matches, so it's not even really fair at that point. I consider that game mode and its balance to be completely different from Onslaught and custom matches, and it's unfortunate that that's the main game mode in this game. Hopefully we should see another big update before the end of the year. That's what the devs have mentioned, so by New Year's we should see some better progression changes, hopefully if we see a new arena or a new event. I'm banking on one or the other being added. I'm not sure if it could be both, maybe it could be. And so before we approach this boss round, where we made a lot of adjustments, I do want to talk about the future in the next couple days for channel content. I've gotten most of the content up I want for different types of gameplay, however there are a lot of things that we can revisit. I do want to revisit Grawl, maybe take a look at Aegean, and then going back into some more custom matches with Magnus eventually. But for now, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that you guys can go back and watch if you're trying to find new strategies. So instead I want to try doing some videos like I had mentioned before, such as top 10 cards I want to see added, or just some different types of gameplay videos like maybe Kingdom Rush Alliance. I had an idea to do a live commentary on some of the Wukong levels, but until then, I'll have to figure it out. I'm sure some good matches will come up, as well as some new interesting topics for Kingdom Rush battles, so it's definitely not the end until this next update, but we just have to see how time flies. Now let's quickly take a look at this boss round. I've got the level 4 shamans and I end up going for the farmer tower over the broodmother because why not? I don't know if that was the right decision to make, but I went for it. Now my goal is to clear the board, and once that's done I'm going to sell the arcane and the dwarfs, buying towers that can damage the boss, hopefully creating a choke point to where the towers are all firing at it. I really like this map because I can put Magnus at the top there, creating a choke point in between those two dwarfs, and that gets a ton of value on the broodmother and all the other troops in that clumped up area right there, as well as being able to take out the Call of the Dragon, making it easy for my other towers to finally start hitting the boss. And I did this pretty early on, however I need to wait for the boss to actually walk around that circle to where I can create that choke point. Since Grasmere and I both chose troop boosters, like the level 4 shamans, it bought us a lot of time to be able to wait and get the boss in that choke point before our opponent could take it out very early. And while Grasmere thought he was cooked here, once I bought those archer towers, there was one crucial mistake that I made, not making sure that the boss would stay in the range of all those towers. I should have left one archery scouts there, making it so that he didn't keep walking, but he did keep walking. He goes out of range of the royal archers, and then this is where Grasmere can take advantage of his musketeers with all of that extra range. Now I do think that I had a massive blunder here and I should have won if I played that correctly, but that's how it goes sometimes. I'm used to selling all of those towers for royal archers and taking out the boss, but I'm not used to reselling those towers and then buying them again, just because I'm like, okay, this is the tech. I sell the tower and I buy a new one to win the game, but then I had to do it again. And so that's something that I learned in this match. It's cool seeing how you can adjust over time and learn more. Shout out to Grasmere here for putting up a good fight and representing the cave well by never giving up. It was a really fun match, and I can't wait to see more of Magnus in custom matches. Until then, good luck in your next battles, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out!